We all love assassins in Assassin's Creed games, but it might be because we have played from their perspective majority of the time. But maybe we should think from the other side as well. Let's see the conflict from a more neutral perspective. Maybe you might actually like the Templars more. This might be a little philosophical video though. But before that, make sure to like this video and feel free to subscribe this channel as I'm gonna be making similar type of videos. But anyways, now the main idea behind the whole conflict between the Assassins and Templars is due to their varying ideologies regarding the society. Assassins on one hand talk about why people should be given freedom and no one should control their lives. On the other hand, Templars believe the opposite, that without proper order and rule, society cannot work properly. The main motto of the Assassins is nothing is true, everything is permitted. That can actually be interpreted pretty wrong by different individuals. Anyone can assert their dominance on the weaker section of the society by following this motto. Also, it's also said by different mentors, specifically if you remember Al-Mualim in Assassin's Creed 1. The phrase exactly doesn't mean do anything and everything is permitted. You have to have wisdom in order to exercise that freedom. Now, this is pretty weird because not every single person is gonna have empathy towards people. Otherwise, in real life, we would have a stateless society. On paper, it looks good, but there needs to be a governing body. Like, even if you see the assassins, not all the assassins are gonna be same, right? So if you put the same motto on everyone, like nothing is true, everything is permitted, a lot of people are gonna follow that pretty wrong. And Altair does the same, in the beginning of Assassin's Creed 1 because he took it in a wrong way. And that's where Templars make a little more sense to me because they focus on order. Now, how they impose the order is where the problem occurs. The main purpose of creating an order is to actually provide people with proper security, unless they are not harming anyone in the name of it. So practically, if these ideologies are followed properly, the Templar ideology seems better and far more realistic. And actually, if you think about it, a proper order and governance will allow people to practice their freedom without getting out of hand. Because to everyone, the meaning, the definition of freedom is gonna be different, to be honest. And the assassins talk about this thing a lot, that give freedom. But it's clearly not that easy as it sounds, right? From the assassin's perspective, the freedom they give to the people has to be ultimately achieved by the assassins themselves. Like, the whole ideology kind of goes against what they're actually doing. They're actually governing the people, and without their governance, people cannot live freely, as we have seen. And that's why order is created to protect the weak from the strong and unempathetic. And that is why it is more reasonable to me. Now, obviously, the order in itself is not gonna make a better society. The order can be a means to do that, but it does not do it by itself. For example, the way Colonel George Monroe was there in Assassin's Creed Rogue, it is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. He governs the district in New York and helps the people against the goons. That's the kind of order I talk about. If you guys have played Assassin's Creed Rogue in the beginning part, when all the things happen, Shay goes through that, he falls off that cliff, and then he's in New York and he sees like the goons are attacking people and taking like extortion money and stuff like that, and Colonel George Monroe is against those people. So that is the type of order I'm talking about. On the other hand, in the same game, the Colonial Brotherhood of the Assassins is doing weird shit. They were responsible for destroying cities and indirectly killing innocent civilians. That happened in Lisbon, if you guys remember, in Assassin's Creed Rogue. Like, it was like in the beginning, everyone will remember if you played it. Like, that was the most remembered mission in that game, because it was like a pretty insane mission, to be honest. Everything was getting destroyed, and we were running through that. It was like we were playing Temple Run or something like that, right? But yeah, so indirectly, assassins were responsible for that, and despite of taking the responsibility, they accused Shay of like betraying and stuff like that. Like, are you serious, man? Like, come on, that dude is speaking sense, right? It's just like even in Assassins, I see this a lot, that it is like a really rigid sort of ideology, and they are not going to listen anything that is not according to their own beliefs. And that's what I hate the most. And they are not gonna acknowledge that like what they have done in this situation was wrong. Like, it's pretty bad to me. And if that's what you get under freedom, better be in an order. Also, the reason why I took the example from Rogue is because that's the only game in which we see both of the sides. The other Assassin's Creed games generally have been showing Templars as the classic evil, right? I feel like there can be more nuance added to these conflicts. Things generally are not that black and white. Also, if you see modern day democracies in the world, it follows the more Templar ideology. Now, obviously, if we see the assassins actually have their tenets, but I didn't see similar tenets with the Templars. You just hear the classic, may the father of understanding guide us. Nothing other than that. There are some, other philosophical talks from the Templar sides, but I'm gonna talk about that later. But, it's not that similar to Assassins. In this game, the sole focus is put on Assassins. Obviously, it's Assassin's Creed, but I feel like showing the other side is gonna be good as well. I feel like Ubisoft should make a game in which they lay out the exact ideology of the Templars and what they believe in, and how could that be achieved. I feel like ultimately no one fights for a cause just for the sake of it, we should obviously see the point of view of Templars as well, in my opinion. Now, what I see most of the times is that in the confession cutscenes that happen after killing the Templars, those Templars seem to be really unhinged. I don't know why. But what we saw in Rogue was very different. Most of those Templars with whom Shay is there are pretty reasonable people, and actually they sounded more reasonable than the assassins in Assassin's Creed Rogue, specifically the Colonial Brotherhood. They don't exactly act like the classic evil Templars. Excluding Assassin's Creed Rogue, Templars in all the other games look sort of evil and same. Maybe we can see some more differences in these Templars. For example, some might be too radical and unhinged, some might be pretty reasonable, some are just puppets and obeying the orders, some are just there to fill the void. There can be so much personality attached to these Templars, and there's so many situations that can happen with them. And it could be similar to the Assassins, right? The Assassins have so much differences, right? On one hand we have Altair, on the other hand we have Ezio, then we have Edward, Arno. All of these guys have like different personalities, right? And we can obviously see the same with the Templars, but in Assassin's Creed games I just don't see that much variation with the Templars, to be honest. All of them are shown as evil. That's why I appreciate Assassin's Creed Rogue so much, despite the fact that it was a smaller game. It showed how every assassin was different and how every Templar was different. Like how I mentioned before, Colonel Monroe was such a good Templar, and on the other hand, Haytham is obviously insane, right? Similar to what we see in Assassins, as I mentioned before. Granted, most of them in Assassin's Creed Rogue were pretty bad. Liam actually was quite sensible compared to the others, but he still also has a lot of bad points. But Ardevale is obviously a very good guy, but in this game he just didn't have a clue what the Colonial Brotherhood was responsible for, and he just supports them because they are assassins, right? Again, as I mentioned the same thing before, that assassins, they have this like strong set of brotherhood. I know it can be good in certain areas, but the problem occurs when these guys close their ears when someone is talking about some wrongdoings happening by the assassins. See, just like how we saw an assassin who turns into a Templar, we can also have a Templar who can turn into an assassin. But why did we not see that? Maybe the Templar ideology actually makes more sense to people. Also, in Black Flag, if you remember Duncan Walpole, he was also on the way to betray the assassins and side with the Templars. But Edward gets in between somehow. So there actually might be things that assassins were doing wrong, that they were getting betrayed by their own members. The same I don't think cannot be said for Templars, at least till now I have not seen any case. And specifically in Shay's case, it was 100% justified. That was pretty reasonable. The dude is a pretty sensible guy, and I'm gonna make a video on him separately because I really like his character. I don't know why he's so underrated, and because it was a smaller game, I think that's the reason. But yeah, I just think he is like a really good character and has a good character arc. But anyways guys, that's it for this video. And what do you think about this Assassin Templar conflict, and what do you think about this perspective about Templars? Do you think that Templars sometimes kind of make sense to you, or maybe you are just gonna stick to the Assassins. Obviously, I'm an Assassin's Creed fan, so obviously I'm gonna like Assassins more than Templars, but maybe we can have this sort of talks so that, in the future games, we can have more nuance on this thing. Anyways, guys, as I mentioned before, make sure to like this video and consider subscribing if you want similar type of content. And I'll see you guys in the next one.